So today I want to help you guys with pain, stress and fatigue, because no doubt as business owners and as members of the human race in the 21st century, you've had your own experiences with these things. So before we get into it, I'll give you a little bit of an introduction to myself and sort of how I found my way into this work. So I'm 21 and I have more hair and longer hair than I do now, and I'm a massage therapist for rock stars. So I'm working as part of a little team, and we're on tour with the Soundwave Music Festival, headline acts Metallica, Linkin Park, Blink-182, and we're at the Adelaide location, and they've set us up in the Heritage Jail there. So we're literally treating out of jail cells, which is kind of creepy, but also kind of cool at the same time, because I'm working on a heavily tattooed guitarist with like a tight shoulder that needs releasing before he goes on. And outside you can hear like the beat of the music of Blink-182, of the crowds, and it's an incredibly surreal experience for me because, I mean, as a teenager I always wanted to be a rock star, but I never really had the talent or the persistence to make it there. So here I am, like working closely with these musicians and traveling with them, so it's kind of like a bit of a dream come true for me. Now fast forward a little bit, I've always been a very curious person, so I've always looked for ways to improve, to be able to understand more and help people with more. And so I go to a lot of courses and I do a lot of extra learning. And so I'm leaving one particular course from a hotel, and I'm walking out with my massage table, and I hear somebody call out from behind me. He's like, "Are you a masseuse?" And masseuse is a bit of a trigger word for massage therapists, but anyway, I turn around and get chatting with him, and he says, "I'm a drummer, I've got a gig tonight, and I could really use some work done. I don't suppose I could hire you to help me out?" And I mean, yeah, since I work with musicians, I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll help you out. I don't have anything else on today. So we find ourselves in his apartment. We're looking out over the city, and I'm working on some pretty gnarly spots in his back. And he starts telling me his story, which gets me really interested, because what happened to him was a few years previously, he'd fallen off a balcony, drunk, and hurt his back quite seriously. And the doctors had told him at the time he wasn't going to be able to get back to professionally performing again. But here he was, professionally performing and on tour, and what had got him back was acupuncture. And he was very passionate about it, and he really talked it up. He gave me some resources, and he gave me a particular book to read. So I went home and I ordered that book. It was The Tao of Health, Sex and Longevity, and I read it, and it kind of opened my eyes to Chinese medicine and Chinese philosophy, and it kind of opened my eyes to what's kind of possible with the body, and just how interconnected we are, not only just like internally within our own bodies, but also with nature and the environment around us. And it almost seemed kind of like mystical and magical, and so at the time it just like captured my attention. I couldn't think about anything else, and before I knew it I was signed up to a 4-year degree. And so over that time of studying, and then in the last almost 10 years now in practice, it's become less mystical and magical and a lot more practical and down to earth. And so today I want to share with you some more practical principles to help kind of like us think a little bit more holistically about how we can support our own bodies to feel better and stronger and more vital. So let's start with pain, because pain is probably the #1 thing that sends people in to see me in the clinic. And it's not just as simple as one area that hurts. Usually that's just the tip of the iceberg. That's just part of a much larger web of tension in the body. Now we store these patterns of tension in different ways, so it can be injured or surgeries or things that happen to us. Even like strong emotions will cause tensions to build up in the body in certain ways. But the most common way we store tension is through our everyday movements and postures. So my first principle for you is that we store tension according to how we move through the world. So if we're spending long periods of time at a computer, our body is essentially trying to make us more efficient at that posture. It wants to make us an athlete at sitting at the computer. So it tightens us up to make us better at being in that position. So what we want to do is be aware that that's happening and do things to offset that. So we want to be taking the time to take regular breaks from our frequent postures or our movement patterns. So getting up, walking around, or changing, like sitting, stand desk, that kind of thing. And then also doing things deliberately to oppose those movements. So the most common thing I see is we're getting too tight through the fronts of our bodies. So from sitting down behind the computer a lot, we get tight through the hip flexors, we get tight through the front of the shoulders, front of the neck. And that causes corresponding tension and imbalances in the back of the body, which is often where we feel it, but we've got to pay attention to the whole thing. So doing stretches through like pec stretches, hip flexor stretches, and then exercises to engage and strengthen the upper back, the glutes, those kind of things are really helpful. Now, obviously, if you've had like some stubborn pain and like tension for a long time, just doing the right things might not be enough to break that and get you back on track, and that's where things like acupuncture can be really helpful, just to get a person back on track. So second of all, let's talk about stress. And stress is very closely related to the first thing, because the more stressed we are in our movements and our postures, the more that actually winds that up into the body. And stress kind of gets a bit of a bad rap. We tend to think that it's something bad, or like if we're stressed it means we're overwhelmed, we can't cope, or things bad happening around us, but it's not that. It's purely our body's physiological response to the demands of everyday life. And so it doesn't matter if those demands we think are good or if we think they're bad, our bodies are still going to respond in a similar way. And so that's going into our sympathetic fight or flight stress response, which is the same thing that helps us run away from lions. It's the same thing that's going to help us just get stuff done in our business. And so we want to recognize that our nervous system has two sides to it. So we've got that sympathetic stress response. We've got the opposite side, which is the parasympathetic rest and digest recovery state. And that's the side that looks after our recovery, our regeneration. And because modern day life is so good at putting us into that stress response, we can, over time, our bodies spend less and less in that recovery kind of state, and it can have a myriad of different consequences. So a lot of people who come to me with chronic issues, stress is a real core issue of that, whether it's like IBS, gut issues, insomnia, chronic pain, hormonal imbalances, all kinds of things. And so my second principle is that unmanaged stress gets stored in our bodies. And so we want to make sure that we've got strategies and techniques that is managing the inevitable stresses of everyday life. So I mean, that'll look different for different people, but essentially you want to make sure that you've got your foundations. So your foundations are you eating well? Are you keeping hydrated? Are you getting your minimum 7 hours of sleep? Are you moving and exercising? On top of that, if you can layer that with other things like mindfulness, breath work, meditation practices that deliberately tap into that parasympathetic rest and digest, that's really helpful. And then obviously it can be great to have external things like treatments like acupuncture, massage, or things like float tanks and things like that to help really strengthen that rest digest side of things. Finally, I wanted to talk about energy, because fatigue, brain fog, and burnout are incredibly common in our modern society, to the point where we just kind of accept it as normal if somebody can't function without their first morning coffee of the day. And it isn't normal. It's a sign that the body, there's something going on, that the body's not producing enough energy. And so it's not calling for us to grab an extra shot of coffee or an extra stimulant. And it's not saying that you're lazy or unmotivated. It's saying that there's something else going on. So the third and final principle is that if you're suffering from fatigue or energy issues, or any symptom for that matter, symptoms of the body's language calling your attention to something. And so we need to pay more attention to that. So what I see in the clinic is often we'll think that lack of energy is that we're lacking something, so we need another supplement or vitamins or minerals or something to bring it up. But rarely do I see is that the main thing. The main thing is that our bodies over time become less efficient. So we accumulate stresses, we accumulate tensions, and these all almost like clog up our system and create inefficiencies to the point where it's like we're trying to drive with the handbrake on. We're spending more energy than we should be to just function normally. And so it feels like we're in an energy deficit. But if we help address some of those tensions, some of those stresses, some of those things that we've stored up, that can go a long way in just helping our body produce the energy that it's supposed to. Another thing to think about is our bodies were designed to work in rhythms and cycles. Just like in nature, we've got day, night, we've got summer and winter, we've got these cycles of growth and decline. Our bodies thrive on that as well. And so our modern society really emphasizes the growth, expansion, always doing, always being busy, always hustling. but our bodies have an equal need for rest, quiet, regeneration. Even like within our bodies, yes, we need to like prioritize rest as much as we do like activity, but also within our lives and within our businesses, like our business needs periods of like consolidation and making sure that we've got like the systems in place to again move into another growth cycle. So I feel like it's a simple thing, but it's an important thing to just pay attention to those rhythms that we should be working into our lives in all different ways. So to summarize, we've got the body stores tension according to how we move through the world. So making sure that we're offsetting our regular patterns of movement and postures. Then the body stores unmanaged stress. So making sure that we've got good strategies in place to manage the inevitable stress of life according to how much you got going on. And then third and finally, if you're suffering from fatigue or any other symptoms, that you're not just looking for the quick fix, you're trying to listen to your body and figure out what it's telling you, and start thinking about how to help your body run more efficiently on the cycles and the rhythms that it's supposed to. Now, obviously, if you have specific issues in any of these areas, I highly recommend working with somebody who can see what's going on, come up with a plan, and then help you move through a process to get you back on track. Whether it's with me at the acupuncture clinic or anyone else, I think it's hard to do those things by yourself when things have got to a certain point, so it's really helpful to have someone there. But then once you're back at a certain level, doing all these things is the best way to maintain yourself and to help with longevity. And that's what we need, a healthy body so that we can be successful in business and successful in life. So yeah, that's what I wanted to give you today. I hope like you got some little bits of value from that. If anyone has any questions or anything, happy to answer anything. But otherwise, yeah, hope you enjoyed.
Yeah, great. Thanks so much, Gavin.
Thank you.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.